You've got to be prepared for your identity, for who you are as a human being, for what shaped you. You've got to be prepared for your identity to move. It's got to be moving forward. You've got to be prepared, some of you, to get out of your boat and start thinking as if you're in a yacht. You've got to start moving things forward. In life and in business, and no different to most aspects, you're either growing or you're dying. It's exactly like a tree. Isn't that right, Shane? Yes? Need to hear you, mate. Your life, your business is no different to a tree. It's either growing or it's dying. You started something with a real sense of passion. You started something called your business with a real sense of belief. And that first day, and most likely the first year, were a lot of fun. But now it's the second year, and if your identity is not shifting forward, if you are not going to a place that's a little unsettled and a little scary mentally to begin with, and get comfortable with that unsettledness or that fear, you will stay where you are, which means you're dying. Does that make sense? Your business will go backwards unless you're prepared to take a leap of faith, firstly with the identity. The identity shift is critical to where you are and where you're going. Every so often, going back to the basics is, okay, what is important for us? What is going to be and needing to be the next 12 months, the next 90 days, and how are we shifting that? Because if I don't shift there mentally, I ain't going to shift there in activity. Does that make sense? If the mind isn't comfortable with that shift and fear is overtaking, that emotional aspect of moving things forward gets in the way, then no matter how and what your resources are, you're always going to be stagnated because of this thing called fear. We also call that procrastination, but we also call it, you know what, you've made 4 or 5 bad mistakes up until now, you cannot really make another one. So it's about surrounding yourself by people that have already made the identity shift and lean on them to help you to get better, as one day you will be helping others to get better. Does that make sense? So it's so important to ensure in your business, when you go back to the basics, you've always got this thing called, what is my identity shift? And for many of you who are the leaders in your organisation, it starts with you. Because if you're not going forward, if you're not leading, no one is following. Does that make sense? So you've got to be leading. Your identity shift is critical. For some of you heard me explain this in a lot more detail at our Board of Directors 12 programs, and even in our Diamond Clubs we talk about this, because it's where we start. If this is your identity, if your identity is here, let me draw it because it'll be easier. If your identity is here, okay, everyone can see that? If this is the way you view the world, and it's here, as an individual, you need to be just there, just marginally behind it. You can't be ahead of it. You can't be ahead of your identity, otherwise you're pretending and it's not going to be congruent. What you say and what actually happens are two different things. You can't be way behind it because you're procrastinating and you know, the identities move forward, but you're holding back, but there's so much an opportunity. Where you need to be as you consistently move the identity shift forward is just marginally behind your identity. So when you do the helicopter view, back to the basics, you've got to be thinking, what is my identity? How do I view the business that I'm growing, the team that I'm building, the customers that I serve, the personal dreams and goals that can be achieved? What is your magnet to keep you moving forward? Because if all you've got is a magnet of scarcity and, oh, I bet I'm in trouble, I can't make this work, then that's what your reality is going to be. So what we put into our mind and what we believe in is what actually happens. Right? So when it comes to identity shift, and we can discuss this more in a more appropriate setting, but you just need to be marginally behind your actual identity because you're chasing it. Does that make sense? That is your stretch, and that's how you keep on moving forward.